So to set up communion on the altar, it's pretty simple. We go with our standard, how we've been doing it. A corporal down below as your placemat. You want to take your chalice next, purificator cloth, right there. Now, if we had a smaller paten, that would go here, like we've been doing. Since we don't have that, we'll just put the pall on top of that, and then we'll address the chalice like so. And the burst goes on top, just like that. You will also want to make sure that your bottle of water, a little crude of water, is up here too. In the back here is where things will be a little different for communion distribution. You will notice there is a chalice back here. For services such as on Sunday morning, we'll most likely have 2 wine stations. So we will need a wine station, so we'll use the chalice on the altar plus an additional one back here. It is best that you don't fill these metal chalices with wine, because the acid in the wine can actually cause corrosion and hurt the chalices. If we're in need of additional communion stations, the pastors will let you know so that you can prepare for that. So say we need 4 stations, we would have the one on the altar, and then we would need 3 more chalices back here. We might also need additional patens for distribution of the bread, and we will let you know that as well. Here on the back is, you will also want to have unconsecrated bread back here. You'll notice there's the gluten-free wafers, there are regular wafers, and there is a celebrant host here. You can use the bigger ones if you like, especially if we have a lot of servers. These smaller ones work just as well though, especially during this time when we do not have as many additional communion assistants. If there are additional patens needed for communion distributions, they can just go underneath the paten with the unconsecrated bread. And you can just cover them up with a napkin, like before. In addition to that, there will be a ciborium. This is acting as our ciborium. This is where all the consecrated hosts will go at the end of the service. And Pastor Diane or myself will take care of filling that, and you don't need to do anything other than help us put it away at the end of communion for that. In addition to the amount of wafers, you pretty much want to go by the average of those communion services. On a Saturday night, if we're averaging about 50 wafers, 50 people, you might only want to put out 50 to 60 hosts. If on a Sunday morning, it's say 9 o'clock, that we are averaging 100, you'll probably want to do 120 to be on the safe side for that. Finally, you will want to make sure that the flagon back here is filled with wine so that we can fill up the chalices as we need them for communion. When it comes time for distribution of communion, it can go there's a couple possible ways of doing this, all depending on the size of the service. For most services, such as on Sunday mornings, Saturday night services, we'll probably most likely just have one station, the first station for the host, that will commune both sides of the church. The person will come here, either on this side receive, or vice versa, receive from the person in the middle. On either side, there will be a worship assistant that will have a chalice, a pouring chalice. They will pick up an empty cup here, fill it with wine, and distribute to the person, saying the blood of Christ shed for you. After the person receives the wine, they will then return to their pews via the side aisles and put their cup either in another one of these empty trays. Would be the best solution so that the cups can be cared for after the service. If there is a small service, such as on, say, Saturday night, only one station will most likely be necessary. So you will not have to set up 2 stations, but on Sunday mornings, most likely you will need 2 stations like this. If we have additional stations, say up in the balcony for Easter and for Christmas and other special services like that, there will need to be communion trays up at those stations as well. The best course of action is to fill them all up with empty cups, and you can do this, fill up a bunch of trays of empty cups, and that way you don't have to constantly be refilling them after every service. We will ask that 3 or 4 cups full of grape juice that will be used for those who do not wish to receive the wine. They can just be put up in these cups before the service, and only one tray needs to have the grape juice in them, as the worship assistant can move back and forth between them if they are necessary to do that. When the worship assistant might run out of wine, what they would need to do is make sure that they don't completely empty their chalice all the way. They would just need to come up from their station, and either them or an acolyte or another assisting minister will need to fill their wine up, their chalice back up, using the wine that's left in this flagon. The wine that's left in this flagon at the end of service has not been blessed, so therefore can be poured back into the wine bottle and used at another service. When communion distribution is happening at the rail, the best way to do that is for an acolyte or an assisting minister to come through with a silver tray full of empty glasses to hand out to each communicant an empty cup. Once that happens, the pastor will follow up behind the acolyte or assisting minister. He or she will distribute the host to each person. The assisting minister or the pastor can come through, distribute the wine by pouring it into their chalice or into their little cups. And then an acolyte can either come back through with an empty tray and collect the glasses, or the communicants can return their cups via the side aisles as we would do normally for a communion service. By distributing communion in this way, we believe that we'll be able to safely distribute the sacrament to all those who are gathered in our church for worship. We also believe that we'll be able to not have as much communion waste at the end of the day, therefore keeping costs down, and also our use of plastic down too, which is a contributing factor to a lot of pollution in our oceans. So quick review, make sure there are 4 grape juices in the trays with the empty glasses. Place your corporal, then your chalice, then your purificator, then your pall, then your veil, and then your burse. On the back, you will want to make sure there's the appropriate amount of chalices needed, a flagon full of wine, a paten with unconsecrated host, including the celebrant's host and gluten-free wafers, and that there's also the ciborium with the consecrated host in there. There may or may not be consecrated host in there depending on how we are able to use what is there.